Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. This is my 2026 updated fountain pen collection video. This morning I just checked and my previous fountain pen collection video was from July of 2022. So yes, in the past 3.5 years I have accumulated a few more pens, let's say. And this is actually kind of deceiving because there is a second layer underneath, and I also have my daily carries over here. I really don't like long intros, but I have 4 things to quickly say. Number 1, I'm going to organize this video into 2 parts. The first part is going to be all of the pens that I purchased myself, and I'm going to organize it roughly from like lower end to higher end. And then the second part is going to be all of the pens that have been kindly gifted to me. I think that'll give a really good view of my taste in pens, and then also pens that I love but I didn't purchase myself. The second thing is that I have been into fountain pens since I was 15, so it has been about 10/11 years. So yeah, this is definitely still a very excessive collection, but do keep in mind that this is about 11 years in the making. Number 3 is that in general, I do not purchase the same pen in the same model or a slightly different model. So for example, the Sailor Pro Gear, I'm basically not allowed to buy another Sailor because the Sailor models are basically like variations of the same thing but in different colors. Also, like the Pilot Vanishing Point, I am not allowed to buy another Vanishing Point, nor the Vanishing Point Decimo. Even though there has been like so many pretty editions out there and I have been tempted many times, it is just a rule that I have for myself to keep my collection kind of minimal. However, an asterisk is the Twsbi Ecos, and this kind of brings me into my 4th point. So the Twsbi Ecos, I do allow myself to buy multiples, but it's not about a special edition that I feel like I have to have. It's more so just because I do want like a variety of nib sizes from extra fine all the way to broad. But for example, I don't use broad nibs too often, so I don't really want to try out a new pen and get a broad nib that I don't, again, use too often. So with the Twsbis, I do have like extra fine, medium, and broad. And the 4th thing that I wanted to say is that this actually isn't my exhaustive collection because I do have like, I think in total maybe 6 or 7 Twsbis, but I don't have them all here because I keep some of them at the office just for staff to use, or when I go to the office and I want to quickly write down some notes, then I will use those Twsbis. I also have some other pens that I have currently loaned to friends, so I don't have it here. But yeah, with that out of the way, I think this will give a good overview of my current collection. So I think it would be only right to start with the Pilot Metropolitan. This was the first fountain pen that I ever got when I was 15, and I have mentioned on this channel a few times that I'm not the biggest fan of this pen, and it could be because this is a dud and I got unlucky, but I know a lot of people do enjoy this pen, so yeah, it's probably like a personal preference thing. This is a steel nib fountain pen. It has a squeeze converter, which you don't see too often in fountain pens. You just need to dip the nib inside a bottle of ink and squeeze the little plates and it'll suck up the ink. As for the reasons why I didn't really enjoy this pen, I feel like it's just not very well balanced. I also didn't really enjoy using the squeeze converter, and this nib gave me a lot of issues. This is, I believe, a fine nib. I am gonna do a pen test on this page, but not with this pen because maybe if you recall from my 2022 video, this nib just like stopped working for me, so I can't write with this anymore. But yeah, when I first got this pen, I was actually completely turned off by getting into the fountain pen hobbies because the nib was just really scratchy and it wasn't working well for me. So again, this is just my experience, and perhaps I should just buy another one and see maybe whether this is like a dud or not, but I still do keep this because it is very sentimental, with it being my first fountain pen. Next are the Twsbi Ecos, which I typically recommend for beginners. This was the second fountain pen that I got after the Metropolitan, and that is when I actually started really liking fountain pens. This has a piston filling mechanism, so you twist the end of the pen, dip the nib inside your bottle of ink, and then twist the piston back up to suck up all of the ink. This is also called a demonstrator fountain pen, so the barrel of the pen is clear and you can see the ink slushing around. This thing inside the Metropolitan that I showed earlier is a converter, and that is where the ink is. And you can see, compared to this giant barrel, the Twsbi Eco has a much larger ink capacity, especially if you write a lot as a student, like pages and pages of notes. This is really good because it lasts a long time and you don't have to keep refilling the ink. This is also a steel nib pen, and I can't say that it is like a buttery smooth writer, but it is very reliable and very solid for just like daily writing. And even though I have much like fancier pens now, I still reach for my Twsbis very often. So yes, if you're looking to dip your toes, oh my goodness, in the world of fountain pens, I highly recommend the Twsbi Ecos. This next pen is also a Twsbi. This is the Twsbi Classic, which I don't think is like too popular, but I actually really like this pen. I have this one in a stub nib, and I think this is actually my only stub nib. This also has a piston filling mechanism. It is not a demonstrator, but there is a pretty functional ink window where you can kind of see the ink slushing around. And what I love about this pen is that it is really comfortable to hold. It is slimmer and longer, so it almost feels like a gel pen or like a pencil. I just don't use this too often because it's not often that I want to write with a stub nib, so if I bought this in like an extra fine or fine, then I would probably reach for this a lot more often. Alright, the next pen that I will talk about is my Kaweco. This is a regular Kaweco Sport fountain pen, but you can probably see that it is a little bit more special. The beautiful flower and bird painting on the barrel was done by a Turkish artist. Her handle is Rose Studio 2019. I've told this story before, but very briefly, at the 2024 New York Stationery Fest, our vendor tables were side by side, and I kind of had a tough time at the event, and she was very, very kind to me throughout. So when it was time to wrap everything up, I knew that I wanted to buy something from her table to kind of remember this event by. But yeah, I don't know if I would have bought a Kaweco if it wasn't for this special artwork, just because I feel like I didn't need another steel nib pen, but I'm so glad I bought this, and I do really enjoy writing with it. The next pen is my Pilot E95S. This is my first gold nib pen, which I purchased when I think I was in my senior year of high school, and it was a very big deal to me. And this is an excellent pen if you are looking for your first gold nib pen, or you're just like looking for another pen to add to your collection. I would highly recommend this one. I think it is really unique. You can see that the nib is pretty cool. It is an inlaid nib, and this has more of a flex to it compared to some of my other gold nib pens. I don't usually post my pens, which is when you put the cap on the back, but with this pen, as you can see, it is really tiny, so it is best to post it. It is very light though, so it doesn't feel like unbalanced. I don't have this one currently inked up, so I'm gonna fill it with this antique black ink. This pen looks really sharp, so I don't know if it's in my head, but I feel like this writes really, really fine, and despite that, it is very smooth. And again, it does have a little bit of flex to it, so I feel like the writing is a little bit more interesting than a typical fine nib. Next up is my Lamy 2000, which I think is just a classic pen. Timeless design. This is also a piston filling mechanism, so you twist the back, but it is just so well made that you can't even see the seam of where you're supposed to twist. I also love the very satisfying snap I got this one secondhand, and just out of curiosity, I looked at the receipt and I paid $146 for this, which I think is a very good deal. This has a hooded nib, so you can see that only the tip of the nib is showing. This is just an incredibly smooth writer. I do know that people talk about this pen having like a sweet spot or something. I was concerned about that, but I never noticed anything. Like, I hold my pen at different angles and I've never had an issue with it. In fact, I was talking with my friend the other day and he said that this pen is almost kind of boring because of how reliable it is. So yeah, if you're just looking for a solid gold nib pen, I really do like this one. Next up is my Leonardo Momento Magico. And I will say, I love this pen, but since I purchased this several years ago, Leonardo has come out with many editions of this pen in beautiful colorways, and those colorways are definitely more of my aesthetic than this one. Again, I still love it, but I'm just saying that like there are some that I like better now. However, again, with the rule that I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I am not allowed to buy another one. Anyways, they offer this both in a steel nib and I can't remember if it's 18 karat. No, this is a 14 karat gold extra fine nib, and it also has an ink window and it is a piston filling pen. I don't know if you can tell, but I do prefer piston filling mechanisms. Anyways, I think for about 1 or 2 years, this was my daily driver pen. I used it in all of my journals and planners. I don't use this one as often anymore. My daily pen is now the Pilot Vanishing Point, and honestly the only reason I stopped using this as a daily pen is just because the Vanishing Point is a little bit more convenient to just click and start writing versus twisting the cap. It is just a me thing where the littlest friction can kind of discourage me from writing. So I still really love this pen. It is a solid pen and I highly recommend it. Next up is my Sailor Pro Gear. This is just a plain black one with silver trim. This is a 21 karat gold nib and I have this in a medium, which is a little bit surprising. I feel like I generally go for fine or extra fine. The reason this ended up being a medium is I went to a fountain pen store with the goal of buying a Sailor, and the only one that they had in stock of the black was a medium nib. I thought about going home empty-handed, but I decided to just buy the medium anyways. I started off kind of regretting my decision, especially because this was definitely a splurge, but I'm actually really happy that this is a medium. I think it writes beautifully and it has that classic pencil-like feedback sound, which I really love. The only issue that I have with most Sailor and Pilot pens is that I just do not like the converter system. Like, even for the bigger Sailor pens, they still have that tiny converter, and I just wish they had some other alternative. But yeah, again, I really do love this pen. Next, I will talk about my Pilot Custom 74. This is a really pretty navy and gold, and I really love navy and gold together. In fact, for the longest time, I was looking for a navy and gold Sailor, but I couldn't find one available, so that's why I went with black. This was a purchase that I didn't really need, although I think you can say that about all of these pens. But yeah, anyways, I bought this fairly recently, I think around 1.5 years ago at Wonder Pens. So Wonder Pens hosted me at their store for a series of workshops, and after teaching all of the workshops, I wanted to buy a pen from Wonder Pens to kind of remember this event by. So I didn't have like a particular pen that I wanted to buy, but I was just looking at all of their available pens and this one caught my eye. I really love how slim and long this pen is. It's very light and comfortable. Oh, and this is where I want to say, so I have 3 Pilot pens. Oh, I guess I have 4. Pilot Metropolitan. So I'm allowed to have 3 of these Pilot pens because all of the nibs are different. The Vanishing Point nib is a different type of nib unit. The Pilot Custom is a different type of nib, and the E95S is also a different type of nib. So I'm not allowed to buy the same like model with the same sort of nib. It's just like an arbitrary rule that I have for myself, so I don't keep buying like redundant pens, if that makes sense. So you can kind of see, like, although the ink does play a role with how the lines show up on the page, you can kind of see like these are both fine nibs, but they look quite different. Since we're on the topic of Pilot and Japanese pens, I will talk about the Pilot Vanishing Point. This is a retractable fountain pen. This is the gunmetal barrel color, which I really love. I think it is just a little bit more interesting than black, but I still like that it is so neutral. And some of my older subscribers might know that I used to own the Pilot Decimo in like a light purple, but I eventually sold that one and kept this one kind of after I imposed the rule of only allowing myself one pen of a certain model series, and also partially because I wanted to save up for, I believe, my Pelikan fountain pen, which I will talk about next. The Decimo is basically like a slimmer and lighter version of the regular Vanishing Point, and again, this is the pen that I basically use every day now in all of my planners and daily journaling because it is just so quick and convenient. The only downside is that, again, as I kind of talked about with the Japanese pens, the converter isn't so great, and it just doesn't have a very large ink reservoir, and the Con 40 converter that this comes with is particularly finicky. So I did switch to using the syringe filling method. That makes it a little bit better because I can get a full fill every time and it lasts a bit longer, but I do find myself refilling this pen maybe once every 1.5 weeks. It is a little bit more frequent than I would like, especially for a pen that I use every day. And speaking of which, this is my Pelikan M800. I got this for myself as a graduation present, and I think this is my most like royal looking pen. I think it is just so stunning. The clip of this pen is the shape of a pelican's beak, which I think is really cool. This also has a piston filling mechanism, and the nib is, I think, my favorite nib of all time in terms of aesthetics. It is dual toned, so it has both gold and silver, and the engraving is just beautiful. And of course, this writes beautifully. I will say though, this one is a little bit uncomfortable for me to hold for long writing sessions. I think because I hold my pen really close to the nib and this ridge kind of bothers me. It's not too bothersome, but it's just one of the reasons why I don't use this one as my daily pen, but I do use this very often. All right, next up I have my Aurora 88 Marbled Ebonite Rose Gold pen. It is a very long title, and I got this, I think this is my most recent personal purchase, maybe. I got this one in December of 2024 and I received it January 2025, so it has been a little over a year. This is an 18 karat gold fine nib and it has rose gold trim. I think I was really interested in Aurora pens because I realized that I really like Italian pens, and this one caught my eye because I have been on the lookout for a wooden pen. It's kind of hard to come by, and I'm really picky about the wood color and wood grain. And this one obviously isn't wood, but it kind of resembles wood grain, which I think is really cool. This is also a piston filler and it has an ink window. And I think I mentioned recently that shortly after buying this, I dropped it and the nib kind of bent a little bit. So I had to get my friend Corolla to bring this to Gina, who is a nibmeister, and they were able to fix it for me, which is great. And it's working beautifully now. This is a special edition, so they also have numbers on the cap. And yeah, especially after tuning and fixing the nib, this writes super smoothly and I love it. Lastly, for the pens that I purchased myself, I'm going to talk about my Esterbrook and TheCoffeeMonsterzCO collab pen. And I'm leaving this to the end because I don't know if I can say I purchased this myself. I basically took one from our inventory. This is the Esterbrook Estie model. Oh, you know what? This is actually not the one that I took. Sorry, this is the one that I took. So I do have two of them and I'll explain later, but this is the one that I took. This is again the collaboration pen and it has the emoji engraving on the nib, which is my favorite thing ever. And I wanted to get an extra fine because I wanted this pen to be something that I use fairly often. I did mess up the writing a little bit, which is kind of embarrassing. So the second part of the video is going to be about the pens that have been kindly gifted to me. There are a few pens again that I don't have here with me, namely a Twsbi Diamond 580, and also a little pink sailor, which I have lent to my friend to use. Anyways, I do know how incredibly lucky I am to have been gifted all of these fountain pens, and I cherish each and every one of them. I hope this doesn't come off in the wrong way, but unlike when I started collecting fountain pens in high school, I am in a position where I can purchase any fountain pen that I want. So I really am the last person in the world who needs to be gifted any fountain pens, but I again do cherish each and every one of them. Starting off strong, this is a Montblanc fountain pen, and this was recently gifted to me by my friend, aka boyfriend. This is the Montblanc 149 curved calligraphy nib, and this is a very chunky pen. Like comparing this to an Esterbrook, you can see how wide and thick it is. Comparing this to a Twsbi itty bitty sailor. Yeah, so it is a very chunky pen, but in general, I do prefer heavier pens, but also this is pretty well balanced and I don't tire myself out from using it. This has a piston filling mechanism, and this is again the curved calligraphy nib, so the line width depends on the angle at which you write and also the direction that you're writing in, and it can also reverse write. And I use this really often for my recent product sketches because again, I can easily achieve a bunch of different line strokes. I just realized I should have written the 149 on the top line. That's okay. This is one of my favorite pens nowadays, and it is independent of how sentimental this pen is. Then I have two Lamy Safaris, and this one was gifted to me by the daughter of one of my staff. If you order from me often, maybe you would have gotten an order packaged by Jan, and her daughter gifted this to me. And this was gifted to me by a friend who I will not disclose the name of. I used to own two Lamy All-Stars. I had a blue and like a seafoam green, but I also sold both of those while I was trying to cut down on my collection and save up for the, I think, Pelikan fountain pen. But yeah, I'm happy that these kind of came back to me. These are excellent writers, and I'm not sure I would recommend these like over the Twsbi Ecos as a starter pen, but again, these are excellent pens. These are cartridge converter pens, so not a piston filler. Okay, then I have another Twsbi. This was also gifted to me by an undisclosed friend, and this is a Twsbi broad nib. This is indeed a very broad and juicy nib, and I think it is really fun, especially if you want to play with inks and display some cool ink properties like shimmers, sheen, stuff like that. Also really fun for sketching and like combining different lettering fonts. I have two more Esterbrook, three Esterbrook Esties. So this green one, this was gifted to me by Brian of Esterbrook at the New York Stationery Fest. This was from when we started talking about like the potential of a collaboration, and he wanted me to try out the Estie for myself. I adore this green color so much, and it writes beautifully. Then I have this Esterbrook Sweet Dreams, which is such a fun pen. It is like a marbling tie-dye of different pastel colors, and I think there's a little bit of shimmer in it. This was kindly gifted to me by one of my longtime customers. Her name is Charissa, and I think just like over the years, her and my mom have gotten really close, and she's basically like family to us. So yes, she purchased this for me, I think around 1.5 years ago, kind of as like a congratulations gift, and I am super grateful, and I love this pen so much. Kind of goes with my nails. And then I have my second TheCoffeeMonsterzCO and Esterbrook collaboration pen. So the one that I showed earlier was the one that I took from our inventory, so I kind of counted that as what I purchased for myself since I did pay for that inventory. This one though, it was kind of given to me as a sample, one of the first samples. And this was originally a medium nib, but Gina, who again is a wonderful nibmeister, they custom ground it down to a reverse architect. So when I write with it, normally it is a fine nib, and then if I flip it over, it is a reverse architect. Again, really awesome for like combining different fonts together and doing sketches. Almost done. Okay, so next up I have this itty bitty Sailor. I believe this is a Sailor Pro Gear Slim. It is probably really hard to write with, so you do have to kind of post it and then twist it onto the back. This was gifted to me by a business friend in China. Her name is Feifei, and she arranges like group orders for, I suppose, like stationery lovers in China to access my products because it is really expensive to individually ship things to China. Anyways, I still can't believe she got this for me. And this color is just perfect. My nails are actually like, this is my first time getting this light periwinkle color, but usually I have like a dusty mauve and it matches this barrel perfectly, and it is just the cutest thing ever. I love it. All right, last but not least, I have a platinum, and this is the Coffee Jelly fountain pen, and this was gifted to me by the lovely folks at Pen Boutique. The platinum pens have a really cute heart on the nib, and this is a broad nib. It also comes with a matching ink, which is just perfect, and I believe they gifted this to me just kind of as a congratulations for the Esterbrook collaboration. Really, really grateful for this thoughtful gift, and this is also my only platinum, which is pretty cool. Okay, that is everything. I find it very satisfying that this perfectly filled 2 pages. I promise I didn't intend for it to be this way. I'm very happy and grateful for all of the pens that I have, and I think I have a good variety of everything. And I know it's kind of a joke to say this at this point, but I feel like I'm very content and I do not need another pen. All right, I hope you enjoy this video. Thank you for watching and take care. Bye.